listening to SuperPower Mommas on the SuperPower Up podcast, the show that embraces the art of soulful parenting.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. You're listening to SuperPower Mommas, and I am so excited to be with you once again today. Today, our topic is parenting with special needs kids. And, you know, parenting in general is a big job, right? It's kind of monumental when you think about all the challenges that come up that are unexpected. You know, when you become a mom, you're all excited. You have a vision of what that's going to look like. And sometimes that vision doesn't actually meet the expectations. And to add to this is when sometimes parenting gets a little more challenging when you are actually, I would say, gifted to share a journey with a child that has special needs. And why I say this is because as we're going to find out in this interview today, there's many aspects about it that when we focus on those kinds of gifts, it kind of eases some of the challenges that we go through as parents. And that's true of all parenting. But today we have Jessica Temple, and I am very excited to have her. She is a neuropsychologist and a mom of 2 children, both with special needs. She works full-time while having these 2 children, and she and her husband have started a podcast which addresses just this. She assists parents or has conversations about the parenting of special needs and how that affects us as parents as well as, you know, what goes on in the family. So I want to say welcome so much to you, Jessica Temple, for coming and also for sharing so openly your life journey with your children.
Well, thank you so much. I'm really excited to speak with you today. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah. So what I want to start with, I really want to get into, you know, your story and how you managed to move through this with dignity and grace, right? While you're in the midst of chaos.
Right, exactly.
Yes, especially with 2 special needs children, right?
Yeah.
That's quite a thing. But before we do that, I first want to ask you, what is your mama superpower? I can't wait to hear.
So mine is kind of twofold. So my main superpower is mindful parenting. Mm-hmm. So kind of being in the moment, being really present with the children, and that kind of leading toward advocating for myself, for my children, and kind of by extension by what I do with the podcast, advocating as much as I can for other people for change in the special needs world.
Okay. So you said, did you say twofold or?
Yeah. So the mindful parenting kind of leading into advocacy. So the mindful parenting being one, advocacy for those in the special needs world kind of being the second aspect. Yeah.
I see. And, you know, I do want to say a point popped into my head as you were saying your words, is that mindful parenting is really something that can assist everyone.
Yeah.
Right. It can assist when you're dealing with, you know, your children and going through all the aspects of being a parent, but also in caring for yourself. So I really appreciate that you brought this out, no matter what walk of life our audience has today.
Thank you.
Yeah. And you're working full time. So
yes.
There's quite a few components here to all of this, right?
Yeah, it makes it really hard to be mindful because I'm navigating a really busy work schedule while taking care of my life, my health needs, and all the needs of my children, their schooling, this and that. So being more in the moment and aware and with all of these things, it can be really difficult because it's just juggling a lot of balls at the same time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I was just going to ask you to expand actually on that a little bit because when we think about parenting in this kind of situation, it's like the same thing for all families, but amplified
Yeah.
when you have, So how does your superpower assist you with your children?
Yeah. So interestingly enough, before kids, I was a really anxious person. So I was always focused on the past or the future. So I really wasn't very mindful. But since having children, especially with children with special needs, it really changed me.
Mm-hmm.
So I realized after the first year or two with my first son, who's now 4, that if I wanted them to survive and hopefully thrive, I really had to be in the moment and in tune with how they were doing, what they wanted, what they needed, and just be in the moment, especially because they couldn't really let me know what they needed, whether it was because they were too young or because they were impaired or couldn't really express themselves, or maybe they just didn't even know what they needed.
Mm-hmm.
So I really had to be in the moment and with them fully to really make sure that their needs were being met and even making sure that their needs would be met in the future. So at first, well, and still now, but less so now, things were really busy because both kids were diagnosed around the same time. So Benji was diagnosed with autism in April of 2019. And although we knew from birth that Alex, who's 19 months old, had special needs, we didn't know exactly what was going on until I would say March or April of last year. So it was kind of the same time that we figured out what was going on. So within a month of each other, we started with all sorts of therapies, with speech therapy, occupational therapy, physical therapy. So I didn't have a lot of time to work to be with them, especially since I was working full time. So it was really like 24/7 of all this. So I wanted to make sure that I could really enjoy the time that I did have with them.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I wanted to make sure that they were getting the stimulation that they needed and really progress. And I realized through that the only way I could do all that was to be mindful, to give them my all and my best and my most present when I was with them, which would give them the stimulation and that bonding that they needed and honestly that I needed as well.
Mm-hmm.
And this led to so many things of course, being able to bond with my children, but also, noticing their sense of humor and noticing all of the gifts that they have in having special needs, noticing when something was wrong and kind of advocating, oh, this is not going to work, let's do something else. And of course, being more patient. So my oldest son, unfortunately, does have a lot of aggression, but in being in the moment, I'm a lot more patient with him and I'm able to anticipate his needs or figure out his needs so that he feels more comfortable, which leads to less aggression. It's also led me to be more in tune with my body because unfortunately with the stress, my body has taken a toll. So being more mindful helps me know what I need to do for self-care because it does change every day.
Mm-hmm.
It's helped me to ask better for what I need and to be calmer because, me having a history of being very anxious with everything that's going on, I could be a nervous wreck right now, but being more mindful and in the moment has helped me be significantly less stressed. And by extension, I work with a lot of adult patients who have their own special needs, whether it's from a traumatic brain injury or a stroke or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's helped me to be more in the moment with them, be more present with them, and to be able to fulfill their needs better.
So would you say, we're going to go for a break, so I just want to do this quickly, but would you say that your experience with your children has actually taught you a lot and enhanced your ability to perform with all clients, whether it's your children?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah. It's amazing the gifts that come out of something that could feel tragic, or feel overwhelming or chaotic.
Absolutely. Do I have time for a quick story?
Actually, we'll do it when we get back. We'll let everybody hear. But first, before we go, please share where you would like people to go to find you.
Sure. I have a podcast called Thriving in the Midst of Chaos, and our website is midstofchaospod.com. We're also on Pinterest, Facebook, and Twitter. Our handle is at Midst of Chaos Pod. And those are the ways you can find me. Feel free to also email at FUBARPod, FUBARPOD @gmail.com.
Perfect. Well, thank you, everyone. You've been listening to Jessica Temple. We are talking on the topic of parenting with special needs kids. And when we get back, we're going to hear the story that Jessica has to tell us. So hold on.
Hello, everyone. This is Tonya Don Rekla, Executive Director of SuperPower Experts, and we want to thank each of you for making SuperPower Up the #1 podcast network for personal development and spiritual growth. Because people like you have the courage to say that mindfulness, healthy living, disrupting reality, the pursuit of consciousness, responsible entrepreneurship, and radical parenting matter. We now amass over 1 million downloads monthly in more than 90 countries. Our numbers keep growing because there are far more people willing to live divergently than mass media wants to acknowledge. For you, the change makers, the light bearers, the way showers, we say thank you. If you're ready to take the next step in your evolution, go now to superpowerexperts.com and take the Superpower quiz. And as Neva Lee Rekla, our youngest podcaster, likes to remind us, remember, we all have superpowers and we can change the world.
Welcome back, everyone. You're listening to SuperPower Mommas, and I am Laura Greco, your host, and I am speaking here with Jessica Temple. And before we went for break, Jessica was going to share with us a story as we were already talking about how life and living with special needs children can actually enhance and teach us many things for ourselves too. So go ahead, Jessica, share your story.
Yeah. So as we were waiting on the break, I actually came up with a few more. So cut me off when I when I overstay my welcome. The first one, there was a gentleman who they suspected he had dementia, but they weren't quite sure what and how and what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And he would not participate with any of the doctors that he'd met. He would refuse any treatment, any testing. And his wife's like, I don't know what to do. I give up. And knowing how to work with my older child who has autism, I was able to work with this gentleman because he was very literal and he required a lot of the same strategies that I used with my son. So in using all the strategies that I use with my older son, Benji, I actually got this gentleman to do all of the testing with me that I needed to do. It was hours. And he was able to participate with all of it. And he was able to get the diagnosis he needed so he could get the treatment that he needed.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Same thing with a woman I saw on an inpatient unit. She was in for, I don't remember what, but she had some other cognitive difficulties and the staff was just done. She was yelling at them, screaming, throwing things. They didn't know what to do. Mm-hmm. And in being more mindful and being in the moment and not getting angry like I wanted to, mm-hmm. I was able to work with her and assess her and determine what she needed, which she had an unusual type of dementia, which hadn't been picked up. So that way she was able to get what she needed, and her poor family and the staff were able to work with her better without getting so angry. And the last quick story is I had a patient who was in a somewhat similar situation to mine. She has a son who has high-functioning autism, who is in his 20s, and he has a lot of other things going on. But because I've been going through what I've been going through with my children and the struggles I've had, I had a lot of resources to provide to her because like I mentioned earlier, with being mindful leading toward advocacy, I've been able to be more in the moment to kind of slog through all the resources and find all of the things that can be really helpful for someone in my situation. Mm-hmm. And I was able to provide that to her when she'd been going through this for 20 years and hadn't been able to find certain resources. So I was able to provide that for her just in being mindful and being present with her and with the situation that's been going on. So it's been really helpful.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. I love how this is. And I also want to address something else because I can't even imagine, like, in the beginning, you're a new mom, right? Things are starting to show up, symptoms. You're an educated person in this, in this world that your children are living in some aspects. How was it for you? Because I don't want this to be like all rosy, like all rosy. So, but I love your resilience. So I just want to say that.
Thank you.
But But what was, how do you relate to the audience that's listening and is really experiencing these kinds of challenges?
You mean like discuss some of the challenges that I've had?
Yeah, and how
Yeah.
you felt about it, like what?
Oh, I mean,
Yeah.
it's very stressful. And so, yeah, starting off, I'm kind of like Mama Grizzly. Let's move forward. Let's figure out what to do. So I'm able to find a lot of resources, but it's been so hard because there are lots of therapies. At one point, it was like 15 a week between both kids and working full time. And we had just less than a year before moved to a different state, and we didn't have family support. We didn't have friends in the area. We weren't able to find babysitters who were willing to watch my older son. And so we had to do it ourselves. And both of us trying to work full time was borderline impossible. My older son got kicked out of school. And as of today, they haven't officially said they're kicking him out, but the school we've been in for the last year and a half is kicking him out. So we have to figure out what to do. The finances are insane. So at one point we were paying $2,000 a month just in copays for the children. So, trying to make sure that we're financially solvent. The relationship stress of, it's like we're two ships passing in the night. We working so hard with the kids, and it's like, oh, there's a spouse here. I totally forgot about you. So many teacher meetings. It's like 1 or 2 a week. And it's always like, oh, great, I'm being called into the principal's office. My blood pressure took a toll. My weight took a toll. It was a lot. It was just a lot. I mean, emotionally, physically, financially, spiritually, it really took a toll. And it's really hard. Through all of this, I have put together a support network and a support system and aspects of self-care through mindfulness. But I won't lie, it is incredibly difficult.
Yeah. And I just want to honor you in that, first of all, for being so honest and, talking about what it really feels like to be experiencing these things. And it really leads me to the next thing. Like, there's no way that if you're wallowing in the, or overwhelmed in the diagnosis, that you could have possibly managed all this. There has to be something that you began to do as self-preservation. And I talk about, maintaining autonomy, how important is that in parenting? I'd love to have your thoughts on that.
So can you define what you mean when you say autonomy?
In other words, that a mom is still her own person.
Okay.
You're Jessica.
Yeah.
As well as a mom and an advocate, and like you're and a neuropsychologist. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
It was really hard. I've been able to do it, but so at first I really liked being just Benji's mom. I would introduce myself as Benji's mom, and I loved being that parent. And then once the diagnosis of autism hit, I realized that I had completely lost my identity. I had no other identity. It was just Benji's mom or autism mom. And so through finding support groups, whether in person or on Facebook, talking to other parents who have kids with special needs, through work, I'm lucky enough through the EAP to have a life coach, and I also have a therapist who I see. They've all kind of been on my case of, who are you? What is your identity? And so I've kind of done 2 things. So one is I started the podcast.
Okay.
So it's still kind of parenting / special needs, but now it's kind of my own thing that nowadays is actually separate from the kids. It's something that I really have a passion for, and I get to learn a lot and meet a lot of really interesting people and do things that make me feel good because I know I'm helping other people.
Yeah.
But I also have started trying really hard to find new self-care things that I like just for myself, or go on dates with my husband because we'd been on like maybe one a year, and going on these makes me realize, oh, I'm also a person and I'm a wife. I'm not just mom.
Right.
And one thing that I haven't done yet, but that I am doing, is there's a resource in my state for free retreats for parents, for mothers of special needs. And in 2 weeks, I'm going on a 4-day retreat where I get to do nothing but stare at the wall and sleep if I want.
Wow. I am so special. What state are you in?
Excited. I'm in Maryland.
Maryland. Okay. For all you
Yeah.
listening from Maryland.
Yeah, it's called A Mother's Rest, and it's a phenomenal service, and it's helped me to really realize that, oh yeah, I have interests, and there are things that I like to do, and there are things that I like,
Yeah.
because I lost that, and it
Mhm.
was really hard to separate myself from just mom, because I was so excited for so long, but I can still be mom and be me and have other identities as well.
Exactly. And so to bring this full circle, how do you feel that this really influences the parenting you're able to provide?
Well, I'm, again, more mindful, and I have less stress. I feel like I have less weight on my shoulders because I'm able to find ways to take care of myself and enjoy life better. So when I enjoy life better, I'm a lot more patient, and I'm a lot nicer, and I'm able to play more with my kids when, when they're hanging off of me, or when I'm getting bopped in the face, or, everyone's screaming at the same time.
Yeah.
I can remember that, I get to enjoy my time with these kids. And then once they go to sleep, I have me time to, whether it's work on the podcast or do self-care strategies, anything to really take care of myself and be a person.
Again. Just breathe, right?
Right, exactly. I really like to try to take baths. Unfortunately, the bath is right outside of their rooms, so I have to be careful about that. But I really try to take at least one a week with like scented Epsom salts or something like that, just to, really enjoy myself. And it helps my muscles, it helps me relax, and then it kind of eases that transition into sleep later on.
Right, which translates to loving yourself, which allows you to more fully love others, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So that's beautiful, beautiful. And I also want to highlight another thing that you mentioned, which is finding community.
Yeah.
Especially, I mean, isolating yourself as a parent is even if you do it emotionally, is actually not helpful in your parenting experience, but especially when you're moving through these high stress situations.
Yeah.
I would say, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I know that I really want to just, because I shared with you before we opened that I was studying early childhood education, and part of my work was, when I was in college, was to do a project, and I chose to do it with autistic children. So I was in an institute, and I was just simply amazed at the talents that children have when they're autistic. And I would love for you to share the gifts that you've noticed and how you've really benefited from noticing these gifts. So with your children, I mean. Yeah.
Sure, absolutely. Well, first of all, they are the funniest kids I've ever met. Because they see things a little bit differently. They're hilarious, and not in a making fun of them way, but they're just delightful people. They're more in the moment, and so I'm more in the moment. They're excited by all like the little things. Like my youngest is obsessed with the moon, and all he wants to do now is just go outside and stare at the moon and point out the moon, 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 moon. And so that's really exciting. They've made friends with the sweetest kids, and by extension, the nicest parents. So I've gotten a better community and also made friends through these really nice people, because we all know that, you never know what you're going to get with parents of kids. Some of them are obnoxious, some of them are cliquey, and some are really sweet. And these parents have been amazing. The kids are really, really clever. So it's really interesting to see how they play and how they do things a little bit differently than other children might. And in my opinion, a much more fun way, and a way that as a parent, I enjoy it more. So I listen to a lot of parenting podcasts, and I hear people complain all the time, oh, I have to play with my kid. Great, I'm playing with cars. And they're bored. But my kids play with things in such an unusual way that it's actually fun for me to play with them. So I'm kind of excited about that. My oldest child scripts, which means he essentially quotes from things that he's heard, whether it's from shows or from other people.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it's kind of an insight into his day because he scripts what he did that day and what other people said and did. So if I ask him, what did you do in school that day? I get literally no response. If I ask, what did you do in this class or who did you see? I get nothing. But just by listening to him, I hear everything that happened that day,
Yes.
which is really cool. My favorite thing, and maybe this is just me and taking pressure off of myself, but with them having special needs, I don't feel that there's that pressure on me or on them to be perfect, be the best, have the best this, have the highest score, those kinds of things. I can let myself be myself and I can let the children be them to do what they want to do in the ways that they want to do it, which I think is really exciting because there's so much pressure on children these days. And by extension, a lot of pressure on parents and a lot of judgment of you're doing the wrong thing. How did you not get them into SAT prep at age 3? And I get to let my children be themselves and find their path and find what they enjoy and be able to really grow that interest for them.
I am so happy you brought that out because I have to say that actually, is it not true of all of us? Like, we often get sucked in, as parents, we can get sucked into, the community that is looking for all those scholastical, achievements and so forth. And yet what's really important to our child and to their growth? Is it all the scholastics or is it the foundation of the person they are? Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I love that you brought that out. Perfectionism doesn't do any of us any good.
That's so true.
But as you pointed out, your children are a different kind of perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I love that. And I think it really encapsulates what's going on is they are perfect. Mm-hmm. And it's in a different way, but in a great way. Mm-hmm. And that's why I like that term, a different kind of perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, I do too. That was very, very sweet. So by extension, you are busy doing your work with your family and in your employment and in the podcast. What do you see? What's the big vision here? What do you see happening? Because we do see, my observation is we see more challenging situations as the days go. What do you see as growing out of what, the contributing part you have in this movement of awareness?
Yeah, so my goal is through the podcast and outside of that to really be, to really work toward being an advocate. I have to find out exactly what that entails, to be honest, but I've already written to our state governor, the councilman, the delegates, and the senator about what's going on in the special needs community of not having enough funding, not having proper services, things like that. And I'm in talks with people about not having adequate access to schooling and proper schooling and the treatments and therapies that people need. Mm-hmm. So really, that's what I want to do. I really want to be mindful of our experiences for all of us special needs parents and let people know what's going on, what we need and what we don't have, and perhaps suggestions and guidance on how to get there, how to get where we need to go.
Love it. Love it. I have a friend from Facebook that is, she also raises a child who has had special needs. And it's been a huge challenge in New York State to even get the schooling or the funding or any kind of help up there for moving through the situation. And I'm excited to have her hear this show and hear what you're up to. Maybe she'll be in touch.
Yeah, that would be great. I've met so many really great people who've done so many amazing things, and it's really helpful for me to hear what exists or what could exist, and then to be able to provide that for other people. So that's always been my thing. Like when bad things happen to me or when unfortunate situations occur, maybe I can't fix that for myself, and surely I can't go back and not have that thing happen, but I can help other people in the future so that doesn't happen to them or so they get better services or have a better situation. So I'm always about kind of playing it forward with providing to others what I couldn't have gotten.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Yeah. So my last question is out of all that we discussed today, what kind of gift or thought or tool would you like to share with our audience that can assist them going forward, whether they have special needs or not in their family?
So be mindful of what your children express to you. So really just pay attention to what they're telling you verbally or non-verbally. Just be aware, and then that'll help you to be your and your family's best advocate. The biggest take home that I want people to have is never be scared to speak up. If, like, you've all heard that commercial, if you see something, say something. So if something's not going right, or if you're not getting what you need, if your child's not getting what you need, speak up. Change can't happen unless we speak up for ourselves. People don't know that there's a problem unless we speak up. So, and that's what's really going to help yourself and your children, is speaking up, be your family's best advocate.
It's so true. So very true. And I will add to that we don't have to be angry, right? We don't have to be.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
This is a movement towards change. And obviously our system has not been set up to support this kind of thing in the past, but maybe that's because it's time for us to step up.
Right. And honestly, a lot of it's because they just don't know. So it's not that they're trying to hold people back or trying to harm people, but they honestly don't know. They haven't had to experience it. So they don't know what's wrong or what's not enough. And if we don't say something, nice with honey, not with vinegar.
Get further that way.
Yeah, exactly. If we don't speak up, they won't know, so nothing will change.
Right.
So it's really a way to educate them about what somebody might need.
Right. And it is an education.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that you've shared this.
Well, thank you.
And what's your best tip for getting some space to breathe?
This is so silly, but asking for what you need. So, just letting other people know this, putting your foot down. I'm taking 5 minutes. I'm going for whatever, a massage, or I'm going for a 10-minute drive. Because I found that when I said, can I have this? Can I have that? It never happened. It was too busy. But when I said, this is what I need for my health and for the betterment of all of us, then I got what I needed. I got that 5-minute break. I got that respite for a day. So really just kind of put your foot down and say,
there you go.
Gently with honey.
Yeah.
This is, being firm on this is what
but firm. Yeah.
Yeah.
But be firm too at the same time. You can be nice and firm at the same time. And you don't have to apologize for it either.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, Jessica, it's been wonderful talking with you. Really.
Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah. So tell everybody again where they find you.
Sure. So our podcast is Thriving in the Midst of Chaos, and it's midstofchaospod.com. And we're on Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, and I don't think I said Instagram last time. And our handle is @midstofchaospod. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you for being on. And I want to thank our audience for listening in. I just want to remind all our mamas how much they are loved and appreciated, and that the work that they do, all that you do out there is so important. We're raising our next generation. We're raising people who are going to be more mindful and more in touch with themselves as well as each other. So remember, you are powerful and you have superpowers. So go out and use them and change the world. Thank you for listening.
Are you ready to discover your superpowers? Go now to superpowerexperts.com and take the Superpower Quiz today.